Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome back to this very special podcast of Pusat Karakter dan Kebinekaan Brawijaya University, UPT PKM. So, besides me, famous research Mr. Fernando Santiago, Ph.D. and for historical educational report, he received his Bachelor's of Art in History and also his Master's of Art and History from Lasalle University, Manila. He earned his Doctor's of Philosophy in History from the University of Philippines, Diliman, and he is a faculty member of the University Department of History, which previously served as a chairman of the Departments of History. And now, or currently, Mr. Santiago Fernando, he is the director of Lasalle University South Asia Research Centers and Hub. So please welcome Mr. Fernando Santiago. And our topic is the religious activity which is taken from the articles of Mr. Santiago Fernando, post-colonialism in Tagalog's activity of and religious. So in 16th century in Indonesia, Islam, Hindu, and Buddhism were still in the main of religion. So with Islam experiencing rapid growth, but Hindus and Buddhists starting to decline.
Yes.
Okay. In addition, during the period of influence, the Catholic and Christians also. So how was the religions conditions of Tagalog peoples in 16th century, Mr. Fernando?
Okay. Well, first of all, let me clarify who the Tagalog people are. The word Tagalog has several meanings.
Mm-hmm.
So it refers to the people who live in the area near Manila Bay.
Okay.
That area is also known as the Tagalog region. Okay, so from Manila Bay down to the province of Batangas and some of the islands slightly further south are part of the Tagalog region. And Tagalog is also the word that refers to the language of the Tagalog people. So it's one word with several meanings.
It's kind of one of tribes in Philippines called Tagalog.
It's an ethnic group.
Ethnic group,
Yes,
yeah.
and I am a Tagalog.
Oh.
Both my parents come from that region.
Okay.
Yes.
Near Manila City.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
Now, in the 16th century, the historical records tell us that the Tagalogs were still primarily animists or nature worshippers. But there are different terminologies used. Some refer to them as pagans.
okay.
Others,
Just like some Indonesian peoples before 16th century, in their first 12th or 3rd century, they are also animisms. Yeah, worship to the big mound or
Yes.
big tribes. And
That's right.
Tree, yeah.
So it could be trees,
Yeah, could be trees.
even boulders.
Okay.
Okay, but we do know that their worship involved a veneration towards the spirits of their ancestors.
Yeah.
So, which is also a strong feature of that religion. So, while in general the people of the region were ancestor worshippers or animists, pagans, whatever the term is used, we also know that Islam had arrived. And in fact, upon the initial contact with the Spaniards, the Spanish impression was that the Tagalog people were already Muslims. It would take them, not too long to realize that we were still in the process of converting to Islam at the time.
Okay. Actually, Mr. Fernando, at what years or at what century does really Islam enter to the Philippines country?
Well, we estimate that Islam arrived in the 1300s.
Okay.
But not in Luzon, further south near Indonesia.
Yeah.
So particularly in the islands of Sulu and then to Mindanao, where Islam would set its roots.
14th century.
14th century.
Okay.
Yes.
So in 16th century, as you wrote in your articles, so most of Tagalong's peoples were Muslims or in Hindu or Buddhism.
Well, Hinduism and Buddhism did not really take root in the Philippines.
Okay.
We are aware of Hindu and Buddhist concepts, but we do not have the temples such as what you have like Chandi Kidal and Chandi Jago.
Okay.
We don't have that in the Philippines. We don't have those structures. There are some anthropologists who have claimed of Hindu practices such as the sati, or the burning of a wife upon the death of herself, upon the death of her husband, but there aren't sufficient evidence that these were really being practiced as expressions of the Hindu or Buddhist faith. So as far as we know, the Buddhism and Hinduism only influenced the Philippines, but they did not really take root.
Okay. As Indonesian peoples, we are also conquered with Portuguese in early 16th century.
Yes.
So in Philippine or Tagalog people, it's Portuguese or Spanish or Dutch?
It was the Spanish.
Spanish.
Yes.
Okay. So they brings the religions Catholics or
Catholicism.
Okay.
But they went the other direction around the world.
Oh.
Because in the case of Indonesia, the Portuguese arrived by way of Malacca.
Oh, yeah.
So they attacked Malacca in 1511 and then proceeded to the rest of Indonesia. In our case, the Spaniards arrived from the Pacific Ocean in 1521.
1521. Okay.
Yes, 10 years after the fall of Malacca.
Okay. Mr. Fernando, so how does the Manila's peoples or Tagalog's peoples receive the peoples of Spanish with their religions in early?
Well, the Spaniards arrived in 1521 in the Visayas region, which is further south. And they did not reach Luzon until Luzon, where the Tagalog region is, until the 1560s. So there's quite a time gap involved. And as I said, when the Spaniards arrived, their first impression was that the people were already Muslims, because the ruler of Manila was named Sulaiman.
Sulaiman.
Okay,
Muslim people.
Well, his name was Sulaiman. It is said that together with his uncle Raja Matanda, that they are related to the Sultan of Brunei.
Okay.
And thus we can assume that they were Muslims. But however, while Islam was observed, eventually the Spaniards would realize that Islam had not really taken root yet, because when they asked people about Muhammad, not everyone could explain who he was. Okay. They noticed that some people had started refraining from eating pork. They were eating goat instead of pigs. Okay, which was another indicator of the presence of Islam. But then at the same time, they were still drinking liquor. Okay, so in other words, there were contradictions in the practice, until eventually they realized that it was really just the beginning of the transformation of the culture towards the Islamic ways, which was probably the process by which Islam had spread across the region.
Okay, so when the Islam just moment in the process of culture, so then the colonial Spanish arrive.
Yes.
So they brings their taglines such as gospel, glory, and gold.
Yes.
And
God, gold, and glory.
Yeah, converts all the people's Tagalog to Christian.
Well,
with persuasive or by?
Okay. It was the Spanish agenda to convert everyone they found in their exploration to Christianity.
Yeah.
So that was their mission. So we know that they had the intention of converting the Tagalogs. Now, they were faced initially with resistance.
Okay.
In fact, there was a battle that ensued, which unfortunately the Tagalogs lost. Okay, not necessarily because of the superiority of just the Spaniards, but the Spaniards had mastered the art of divide and conquer. And by the time they attacked Manila, they already had more than 1,000 other Filipinos, the Visayans and people from other parts who had sworn their allegiance to Spain already. So if not for the local support, then the Spaniards would probably not have succeeded. Okay, but of course that's a speculation. But they were reinforced by more than 1,000 locals, which led to the defeat of the Tagalog ruler. Now, the process that followed very much replicated what the Spaniards had done everywhere else, where they would then begin to concentrate people into communities. Because back then, the Tagalogs were living spread across the rivers and by the coastline. So they were now consolidated into a manageable group. It was called the reduction, like a reduction. And at the center of the reduction was a church, a Catholic church. So, and that would be the beginning of the life in the pueblo, or the town, with the Roman Catholic Church at the center of life.
So the effects of the Spanish and so colonialism. Now, how much the percentage of Christians and Muslim or other religion in Manila, in Philippines?
We currently have a population of around 110 million. I'm sorry, I didn't get to check, but more or less, we have about 110 million. And we estimate, the estimate is that the Muslim population out of 110 million is about 11 million.
11 million,
so
maybe 10%?
A little less than 10%.
A little less.
Yes.
So the rest of them is
but the rest of them are majority Catholic.
Catholic.
But there are, of course, other Christian denominations, including the local groups such as the Iglesia ni Cristo, which is also Christian, but a local church, and some other groups.
Okay.
But a smaller number of Buddhists and other world religions.
Okay. In current era, is there any locals' beliefs as what we call in Indonesia, such as kejawen? We believe in Dewa or Sang Hyang. In other than Muslim or Christian, is there any locals' belief that peoples of Tagalong believe?
Do you mean superstitions?
I mean local beliefs such as animism in this area. In this era?
Well, in this era, we find religious syncretism.
Okay.
So, combined with Catholic practices and beliefs, are some what would seem to be pre-colonial pagan practices. One example is that because it's a rainy day today, and in the Philippines we have a saying that if you have let's say an event and you don't want it to rain, offer some eggs to a Catholic saint. Okay, and it won't rain. That's not Christian at all. Okay, so it's more of a pagan practice to offer eggs in exchange for good weather.
It's not Christian Orthodox.
It's not. It's not Christian at all.
So, how about the government's practice to prevent the intolerance or conflicts between the ethnics of religions in Philippines?
Well, in the past, there have been violence between peoples of different religions. And like in any other country, there are misunderstandings or the lack of understanding of each other, which has resulted in confusion. Okay, but in general, the issue of violence between people of different faiths on the basis of their religions is not much of an issue. People are aware of the possibility, but then as far as people actually hurting each other on the basis primarily of faith, it doesn't happen so much. We do have some rebel groups who are of Islamic background, but again, they are at war not necessarily because of religious reasons. Okay, so it's
because
more
of territory, politics, and
yes,
other things.
correct.
Yeah.
So it just so happens that they belong to different faiths.
So in your articles, Mr. Fernando, you tell us about animo. Yeah, anito.
Anito, yes.
Anito. Maybe in Javanese cultures we call it dewa or what.
Yes.
So how this anito can be believed by the Tagalog peoples?
Well, the term anito is really a very broad meaning word. So it could refer to all spirits.
All spirit.
Yes, including the creator. So in some historical records, Bathala, which is the name of the creator, was also referred to as the greatest of all anitos.
Batara.
Bathala is believed to be derived from Batara, specifically Batara Guru. Okay, as I think is a term that is currently
Such as Vishnu in Hindu.
Yes. I think it's the term still used in Bali. So so Bathala was the name of our supreme being, and again he was referred to as the greatest of the anitos. But the word anito also refers to ancestor spirits. So, and in more common usage, when we hear the term anito, it simply refers to not necessarily Bathala, but the minor spirits. But the article that I wrote is a critical assessment of historical records concerning the pre-colonial Philippine religion, since these historical records were generated by the colonizers, specifically white male Catholics. Okay, they were priests who were interpreting what they observed in light of their own worldview. So, if you look at the way the pre-colonial Philippine religion is described, the way it is structured, you will notice a resemblance to Catholicism, in fact, which has led some people to conclude that the pre-colonial religion was designed, it just coincidentally happened to be very similar. But my contention is that they were not necessarily similar. That framework was how these friars who made the records were interpreting what they were observing. So they were interpreting the world in light of their own realities. So even the Philippine religion, they understood from their own perspective and not on the basis of the Filipino point of view. So that's my argument in my study. Okay, and that's why I refer to this as epistemic violence, because or epistemicide, because in the process of recording the pre-colonial Philippine religion from the perspective of the Spaniards, and since Filipinos we didn't have a writing tradition, we had our form of writing, but we did not record our beliefs in books or manuals. So the religious beliefs from the Filipino standpoint during the 16th century simply do not have any records.
Any manufacture.
So today we can still see elements of the pre-colonial religion in some practices, but given the passage of time, the likelihood of it having already evolved and transformed is very high. And perhaps one more point I should mention is that the spiritual dimension, the cosmological order, is something that is very difficult to articulate into words. So even if one is to share one's own experiences, the way you describe it will not necessarily capture the way you experienced it. Because it exists on a different realm of reality.
Which I can read here in your conclusions of your article, that beyond the historical accounts, the pre-colonial beliefs are practiced to this day, albeit in new form to seek involve Christianity.
Yes, that is the syncretism. We call it folk Christianity.
Folk Christianity.
Many Tagalogs today, if asked if they had Muslim ancestors or Islamized, at least not even Muslim yet, but in the process of becoming Muslim, ancestors would say no, because it has totally been forgotten. So it is our past that was erased, which we can find only in the historical records.
It's been long, it's 4 centuries.
Oh yes.
In the past 4 centuries.
Yes.
So therefore, one of the last outcome of the colonialism in Philippines is that meaning the Tagalog pre-colonial religious belief will forever be forgotten.
Well, that is my that is my conclusion.
Oh yeah.
But then, of course, I am coming from the discipline of history, and the allied disciplines such as anthropology and perhaps even sociology. If there are any specializations in religious studies that could extract information, then I'm hoping that I am wrong.
Okay. Maybe it's a little bit different in Indonesia. Something that related to 16th or even 15th century we can find in Arca.
Yeah.
In what we call something like Gapura or manuscript. But as
unfortunately we don't have that.
In pre-colonial religious activity in Tagalog peoples,
all we have are descriptions from the Spaniards.
Those are the podcasts and also the enlightenment from Mr. Santiago Fernando about the cultures and religious activity in pre and post colonials in Tagalog peoples. So thank you for the attentions. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.